Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick and welcome to what is a slightly somber event because this is the final spoiler video I'm going to do on X-Wing First Edition because what we're seeing here are the final bits of the puzzle. The two cards I'm going to talk about today in this video is going to round out Wave 14 entirely, and everything else new that we talk about from this point on will be for X-Wing 2nd Edition. And while that might be a little bit sad, I do want to say I love the design behind a lot of these cards. It seems like FFG are giving us a lot of really fun sandbox style tools to go with First Edition, and also making an effort to try and correct the meta as best they can with what little tools they can offer us just from this one wave alone. Now, during the reveal and spoiler articles for the TIE Reaper and Swords Renegades, we saw these spreads here, and the only thing we didn't get out of those articles was one single upgrade card from each of these packs. And we're going to start off with this upgrade from the Swords Renegade pack. The Thrust Corrector, a systems upgrade for 1 point. When defending, if you have 3 or fewer stress tokens, you may receive 1 stress token to cancel all of your dice results. If you do, add 1 evade result to your roll. Your dice cannot be modified again during this attack. You can equip this upgrade only if your hull value is 4 or lower. And I find this card, more than anything, is very telling of First Edition. First of all, it's an absolute word sandwich. A lot of these sort of fixed by proxy cards have become word sandwiches because they have to be so long and complicated and have to apply to so many different ships. The great thing moving into 2nd Edition, things like that final paragraph where it needs to be 4 or lower hull, that can just be in that little white box that fulfills the condition of the ship, and it's a lot easier to translate into 2nd Edition. So in First Edition, yes, these effects are a bit more wordy, but nevertheless, that's not really what these are about. These are about trying to correct things in the meta. And this is a really cool effect. Now, obviously it comes in the Swords Renegade pack, which means it can go on one of the ships in that, namely the U-Wing in this case. Although, to be quite frank, I don't think this is a good option for the U-Wing at all. I just don't think the U-Wing can derive enough value from this card. In fact, I think the vast majority of ships that can take this probably don't want it, except for a couple. The G1A Starfighter, which oddly enough is pictured in the art of this card, and the B-Wing I think may have some fringe uses for this card. Actually, let's talk about the B-Wing first, because a lot of people have pointed out that yes, this could be an interesting choice with Kane Farlander. And I'm having a look at this and I'm not too sure. My biggest issue with Thrust Corrector on Kane Farlander is it's taking the system slot, and that means he cannot take fire control systems, which seems like a big cost for this pilot. However, I will say I do like the fact that Thrust Corrector gives you a stress mechanic that isn't pushed the limit, which means he can use something else in his EPT slot. He could take, for example, Veteran Instincts, go up to PS9 and still have a reliable way of stressing himself out. Only issue with this build though is the timing can be a little bit awkward. Ideally, if you want to use Kane Farlander's ability off the back of Thrust Corrector, it means he has to get shot before he shoots back at his opponent and uses that stress token to change all his focus results. And if he's at PS9, or even if without VI, if he's just at PS7, that's not always guaranteed. In fact, that's unlikely most of the time. So while I don't hate this card on Kane Farlander, I do think it's a bit awkward. However, if we take a look at the G1A Starfighter, I think there is a clear fit for this in 4-LOM. And more to the point, 4-LOM is a bit more of a budget pilot, and I like the fact that there's a very applicable 1-point system upgrade that he can take. In fact, if we have a look at this build here, it's only 32 points. Indeed, you could take off Outlaw Tech and just make this 30 points. I just like Outlaw Tech on the G1A Starfighter. I've got a bit of a soft spot for it. There is a lot of red on that dial, so you do get a lot of value out of that card. And with Thrust Corrector, we can reliably get stress tokens onto 4-LOM, even if he doesn't do a red action. And if he's not doing red actions, it means he has that barrel roll open, and he can maneuver around a lot more easily. What I like more about this build than the Kane Farlander build is because we have Outlaw Tech, we can use the option of just taking red maneuvers, so if you don't get to shoot after your opponent, we don't get that same downside we have with Kane Farlander. And what I particularly like about this on both pilots is the fact that this still operates through a threshold of up to 3 stress tokens, which seems to make it very usable overall. I've seen a couple people commenting that this should be a 0-point card, and I just can't get behind that notion. I feel like dice insurance overall is just too valuable, and anything that adds an evade result just sits beyond the threshold of 0 points. One thing that really gets me down on this card, however, is the fact that you cannot modify your dice after your attack, especially on the G1A Starfighter. Starfighter. That really hurts. I was actually theory crafting with this card until I realised that was the case, and it really bummed me out because it means you can't use this ability and then spend an evade token to get 2 evade results. I feel like having that text on there was a little bit harsh on the card. I feel like this card could have not had that text and it still would have been fair and playable. We are talking about first edition after all. There's a lot of powerful dumb cards in the format, but nevertheless could have some interesting application. The question is really whether it can prove itself more valuable than Fire Control System. If that defensive bonus and 1 less point is enough to overcome those issues, then I'm all for it. The other card we have today in the Tire Reaper pack is Multi-Spectral Camouflage, or Camouflage Multi-Spectral, as we're seeing on this French version of the card. And thankfully First Earth on YouTube, who revealed this, also gave us a translation, so thank you so much to those guys for doing that. Small ship only modification. After receiving a red target lock token, if you have exactly 1 red target lock token, roll 1 defense die. On an evade result, remove that red target lock token. And this seems really applicable across a lot of things. It's a card that potentially hoses, or at least restrains somewhat harpoon missiles. And I think that's a really good thing just to put in the game as X-Wing First Edition's closing out. Harpoon missiles, while not super oppressive and dominating right now, is problematic in some builds. It's really applicable over a lot of builds. In fact, pretty much any build with small ships that don't already use their modifications can pretty comfortably take this. I can see this slipping into the Phantom Lethal Rebel build just really easily, without much fuss. I mean, yes, that list doesn't really need much of a boost, but that is an option nonetheless. But what I'm really excited for, and this is not so much a meta thing, is this on the Vaxi, because this is a free upgrade on the Vaxi. Now, I'm a big fan of flying 4 of these guys with a nice versatile build, but one of the things about them is I find it's very difficult to fill out all 3 of those modifications in any kind of relevant way. Sure, you could chuck on munitions fail safe and guidance chips and a piece of ordnance, but there's still 1 more modification slot left. In fact, in every single build I've played around with these guys, there's either 1 or 2 slots left in the modification, simply because there's no good free options I can take. But Multi-Spectral Camouflage is not only an option I can put on those, it's a really good option. Because against 4 Kirax fighters, harpoon missiles are very oppressive. It can do a lot of damage to your squad very quickly. So personally, I'm really happy to see this. Even against lists that don't use harpoon missiles, it really does shut down the potential of your opponent taking target locks. In fact, in my opinion, if my opponent was playing this card, it would really dissuade me from taking target locks because it means my action could ultimately whiff altogether, which feels really bad. I will say I'm not a huge fan of taking away decision making. I feel like in X-Wing 2nd Edition, that's something we are specifically moving away from. But in terms of addressing the balance and the meta in 1st Edition, I like this card a lot. It's a good, powerful tool. It shuts down some nasty, oppressive things going on in 1st Edition right now. And I think it's a great upgrade card to put in the game right at the end of its life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the last of what we will see from X-Wing 1st Edition in terms of new cards. I hope you liked all my coverage of the game over the past year, and I hope you're all looking forward to X-Wing 2nd Edition as much as I am. We've got a lot to talk about with this new game, and I'm really excited to go through a lot of this stuff. We also got confirmed the other day that in August during Gen Con, FFG will be selling some of the X-Wing 2nd Edition stuff in advance, which should hopefully also means that the app will drop as well, so we'll start to get some costings, we can talk about builds, we can talk about how all these upgrades balance, and we can start to do some more list building videos in 2nd Edition. I'm really looking forward to that. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit, and I will catch you guys later.